Be very welcome here on the stage.
Ouch. It works. It works. Hey. I can do this without. You want my microphone to use for the recording, right? Because I can do this with my military voice. I can get there right in the back. Yeah, exactly. Okay, so this is my PowerPoint, just to explain what I'm doing. Good morning. Can I ask you a question? I can't ask the people who are, of course. I will try to walk not too often up and down. I will make you nervous, I think. I'm going to talk about Agile. What do you know? Do you know Agile? Have you heard about Agile? Who of you is working Agile, is actually doing it? 1, 2, 3. Okay, that's good. That's good. Okay, so, yeah, thank you so much. I'm trying to figure out how to do this. Oh, it'll be interesting. Let's do it. So, what I want to do, I have an hour. So I suggest we do like 45 minutes and then we get to talks. Okay? Questions, because I can do my talk, but I think you can ask your own personal question. And that's what I think helps you most, and you're here to help yourself, right? So what I would like to do is to talk first a little bit about the origin. You know, where does Agile come from? Because I hear a lot of magical stories. Somebody asked me yesterday, Arie, I'm telling for 10 years that when you wrote the manifesto, you were drunk. Were you drunk? No, I was not, I'm sorry. It's maybe boring, but I wasn't drunk, right? So not at all. But I want to talk to later on. I want to talk to you about the origin. I also want to talk with you about what I think is the real success of Agile. I mean, there's so many people trying, and not everybody is getting the benefits, right? And I think we need it, especially in the times that we live in, digital transformations and everything that's close around it. There's a reason for it. So I want to give you some hands-on tips and tricks on how to make it successful and where the pitfalls are. And also, I would like to give you, if there are pitfalls, I would like to give you some solutions. Okay, if this is the pitfall, how can you overcome it? First, I want to take you back to where it started for me, right? Because when we wrote the manifesto in 2001, we were 17 men in a room, but at the same time, right, we all had our own driver to be different. So my story about being different was started in 1994. I know that, as far as I know, James Brenning started in 1998. Others maybe in the late 80s or the early 90s. So we all had our own moment of change. And also we had our different motivations for change. So I want to talk a little bit with you about that one later on. But I think when it comes to being Agile, one of the things that you do in Agile is that you walk paths that nobody else has walked before. And that's not nice. Because what people tend to do, people tend to step into the safe zone, where everybody has done it, and okay, I'm not at risk when I go there. And I remember that I was 15 and I was in high school, and where I live, it means 45 minutes on your bicycle to school in the morning and 45 minutes in the afternoon back home. But thankfully, I had a mother who was always waiting for me, with a cup of tea and cookies and stuff. And I remember one day I was 15, I come home and I said to her, Mom, I know what I want to be when I grow up. And she said, and she had a history in the elderly care. And she said, okay, what do you do? I said, well, I want to become a midwife. I want to deliver babies. And at that moment in time, and I think still, that job the profession is done, I think 95% woman. And hardly any man doing the job. If you see a guy delivering babies, it's a gynecologist in a hospital, right? Then all of a sudden you're a doctor. Different story. So my mother could have said at that moment in time, no, I want you to become a gynecologist. That's better for you. But my mom said, hey, if that's what you want to do, that's what you got to do, right? And that's the number one. If you go into change, if you go into paths that nobody has gone before, you need support from the people around you. And how often do we get in situations where the people around us, especially at work, are fighting us when we try to bring change and innovation, right? Okay. So in the healthcare, but after 2 years, a little less, I thought, okay, this is not my life. This is not the rest of I was 20 at the time. I don't know. So I worked in the hospital, operating rooms, delivery rooms, seen it all. I thought, okay, not for the rest of my life. Very interesting learning. And the Netherlands at the time, when you stopped your education, because it was an education program, you had to go into as a man, you had to go into the army. So I went into the army. And I remember my original job that I meant to have was to become a sergeant and a group commander, like 10 people. And then so after 2 weeks in training, my company commander, my training company commander, a major, he called me in and he said, Van Bennekum, they always call you by your last name, right? Van Bennekum, yes, sir. What do you think about becoming a platoon's commander? I said, what is it? I didn't know. He said, what's the difference? I said, what's the difference with what I do now? What I'm supposed to do now, when I'm at the end of my education. He said, well, now you have 10 people, and then you have 40, and your salary will be 100 Dutch guilders net extra. I said, okay, let's do it. Let's do it. And you go where you don't know where you're going, right? And I think it's very important that you need a little bit of guts. And we all like that comfort zone so much. So that was the second step. And I remember that in the military, and some of you already heard it yesterday, in the military, when I was in operations, my company commander said, hey, you want a letter of recommendation? Because then I write a letter of recommendation, you can go to the academy. You will be really doing well there. And I said to him, no, I don't see myself, doing this for the rest of my life. So that was a career path that was totally clear, right? If I would have joined the army at the age of 21, I'm 57, the career in the army at that time was 36 years. So I would be retired now. I would be sitting on my bum back home, watching television all the time, not my kind of lifestyle. And I became a developer. And just think about it, because I see people who are a little bit older than 21, but some might be close. And you all remember your first work spot. When you walk into that office, you don't even know where the toilet is, right? So you're depending on other people. And what happens in organizations, in teams, in project teams, in departments, the room where you do your work, there are people that are more senior to you, and they will tell you how to do it. They will tell you how it works. They will tell you where to go. And if you want to do it in a different way, they will correct you. No, don't go. You need to go there. Okay, you go there, right? We listen. That's what we tend to do all the time. Now, there's nothing wrong with listening at specific moments, but we need to understand we don't drive 130 kilometers per hour by improvement of a horse, right? From the horse to the car, we started doing completely different things. And look at where we are today, right? Yesterday we talked about the digital transformations, and it feels like a buzzword sometimes. Oh, we go to digital transformation. But think about it. Every one of you, there you are, right, is having a smartphone these days. 25 years, if you had a smartphone, people say, oh, you have a mobile phone. Wow, you're a fancy man, you have a lot of money, eh? 35 years, the thing didn't exist, right? So you need to understand that we are in a world where the pace of change is only going up. It's never going down. It will only go up. And I really feel, I don't know how you guys feel it. Sometimes, you get those envelopes in your inbox, and then your pension fund sends you, okay, here you have your login ID and your password, and you go there. I think I have about 20 of those login IDs just from pension funds, because of the different things that I did in my life. And I think, oh, not again. So I have this pile of paper. We feel this internal resistance about when something comes to you that you don't know. And I learned that 2 weeks ago, and I talked about it yesterday as well. We have an unconscious mechanism in our brain that says, oh, be careful. I learned, like, have you ever seen a documentary, nature documentary about crocodiles? Don't tell me, what does a crocodile do? When you see him on a movie, on television, what does a crocodile do? Hardly anything. He lies in the water. He's like, and you know why? That brain tells him, hey man, you're safe. If you move, situation might change, you never know, right? So you better not move. That part of that brain, they call it the reptile brain, we have it as well. And it's covered in the amygdala. I learned the word two weeks ago. The almond kernel. And that's the thing. And it's about survival, right? Because survival is about, okay, make sure that you're safe. And staying in the safe zone keeps you alive. But the point is, if I innovate a new way of software development, it doesn't kill me, eh? And there's a difference between, the really serious change that threatens your life, or, but it's the same mechanism going on. So we need to fight them, right? And in 1994, in 1987, I became a developer, software developer, making code, sitting behind my keyboard in the morning, putting up the glasses, debugging, testing, job control language, right? All this stuff. And I had a good time. And then I switched to another company, and it's 1994, and I get into the governmental project, and we were working there with 30 people. We were working hard. We were working for 7 months, full time. Just calculate, right? Think about it. It was millions. And then all of a sudden, out of the blue, the project was stopped. And to my knowledge, not started ever again. And my personal point, and this is for me, when it comes to Agile and the origin of Agile, extremely important. Why? Because it's so simple, right? If you're doing something and somebody else is paying you for it, I think the person that is paying you for it should expect something in return, right? You're there, you're doing something, you get paid for it. There should be something coming out of this, right? Value. Horrible word, but it's true. And I thought we wasted public money. And if the same thing had happened in a profit organization, in a telco or bank, I would maybe not have been in the same state when the project was killed. And maybe I was just a little bit upset because, within 15 minutes, everybody was just kicked out of the building. Eh? 30 people, almost everyone, I do my knowledge except for 2, everybody, external project stopped. We were kicked out of the building. 10:15 in the morning. I stood next to my black Nissan Primera. I'll never forget it. I'm standing next to my car. I thought, okay, what are we going to do now? And I thought, if I do something, I need to make sure that I can deliver the value. And in 1994, shortly after this project stopped, I got into the world, what we call Agile today, the first steps. And I started doing things that I didn't know. I walked the unknown path, not alone. I had people with me, and nobody knows. Well, we had a 2-day training. I said it yesterday as well. Right? But what you have is these days, they send you on a 2-day Scrum Master training, and now you know everything, and they expect you to do magic, and they expect you to be the coach, and now you need to do marvelous deliveries, right? That's what you do. No, you don't. Man, it's about 2 days of talking to you how to drive a car. And then they give you the keys. Hey, good luck, eh? You will hit the first tree, right? Or the first bend around the corner, you lose it. That's what happens. Because you don't know what to do. Anyway, what for me was most important, I didn't know really. I mean, I had 2 days of training, so you start to do things by the book. But of course, things happen, and people say, no, you do it like this, but they say it like that, and you get the different interpretations, right? And so think, okay, how does it work? So I started doing, I call it the pizza sessions. After a while, you can't see pizza anymore because it's working, daytime at the office, and then twice a week at, let's say, 5 or 5:30 after office hours, you meet somewhere in another office or whatever, you order in pizza, and you start to share. Okay, what did you do? What did you learn? What went well? What went wrong? If it went wrong, it went wrong for you. Do you have a solution? Did it went well? How did you then? So you can, and we tried to cherry pick from each other the learnings. Later on, I found out we were not the only ones. There were so many people doing it, right? So the message I want to make here is there are different backgrounds in the Agile community, where we started. But what we all shared was the sharing of knowledge. John Kern is one of the other authors of the Agile Manifesto. He said a couple of months ago when we were in a shared session to the audience, he said, when we walked into that room in Salt Lake City, we left our egos at the door. Ladies, I see quite a few ladies. Just tell the men, normally, if you put 17 men in a room, what will happen? Nothing. It always comes out. I like to say, very often, what guys try to do is they will tell the other 16 that their idea is best. That's what guys, and I will not say we didn't do that at all, because you all have your background and your success and your pride, But at the same time, we literally started with, okay, so you work differently, eh? So how do you work differently? Just tell. And I even remember what I was wearing that day. Black jeans, black roll neck, black body warmer. I still remember. And one of the things that I would like to do is, I would like to make you a little drawing. And that's for me so essential, because it says a lot about Agile. Agile is not one thing. You know, we were all trying to solve problems. And I will talk about the problems a little later. But I want to just take a little bit of the landscape that we had when we were writing that manifesto, right? So we had, in terms of, you know, what is the problems that we are trying to solve, there were people amongst those 17 with a focus on okay, we have quality problems, and we always say that this is 17 developers, right? And what do we say about software? Software is the product where you get the problems for free and you have to pay to get them out, right? So quality is an issue in some, and still is in a lot of places. Also, you know, about efficiency. Other people are focusing more on efficiency, and for example, myself, I was focusing a lot on value. And in terms of what kind of people are you? Because my last project was 30 people, and that's massive. The communication with 30 people to keep that good and going and connected and up to date in real time is very difficult. Right? So we have a lot of people that talk in Agile about the team. Remember 9 people? You know why we do 9 people or less? You know why that is? Sorry?
There's a number that is effective or effective.
The point is, this is how I got it explained. When you get to above 9 people in a team, you get subgroups. And at least the risk for subgroups is very high. Above 15, for sure, you get subgroups. One of the things in Agile that we try to create is, instead of doing your individual task, we move to team delivery. And what it means is, I don't care what you do today, as long as it's something that the team needs. And that also makes you multidisciplinary. You're no longer just a developer or just a tester or just the analyst. No, if it requires today that you do some testing, you go into testing. And if it requires today that you do some extra development, you go into development, or you make your test scripts, or whatever you do. That's where you're, so it's moving away from individual tasks to team delivery. It's moving from a silo to a shared responsibility. As a team, we are responsible for delivery. I'm not responsible for delivering a technical design. I'm delivering for delivery. I'm responsible, co-responsible with the rest of the team to deliver something to production. Because the technical design doesn't bring value, right? So the team size, but also have people like myself very much into large groups, and you also be focusing more on the individuals or the pairs. Now, if you look at this, struggling a bit, then you can see that when we wrote in the manifesto, and Jim Highsmith is one of the authors of the Agile Manifesto, and he wrote a really nice book about it. So what he did was he talked to all the people who had a methodology that they represented. So I represented at the time the DSDM, it's called the Agile Project Management Framework now. I think Jim himself, I know he did Adaptive, Alistair Coburn, Crystal, of course we had Scrum, we had extreme programming and test-driven development. The reason I'm writing this down is now you can see, you know, Agile is not just, the people will say sometimes, oh, we use the Agile methodology. Great, doesn't exist. Agile, if you really want to, you can say Agile here is concept. And I can recommend you to go to, if you never did it before, you can go to Agile Manifesto, manifesto.org. And then you can read about the fact that we say, hey, you know, we try to discover better ways of making software all the time, that we do it by trying to learn and also helping others, you know, to make that happen. And we have 4 values and 12 principles, and they are the key of Agile working. So when you get into agile working and you're doing at the end of a 2-week sprint, you do a retrospective, and you always think, okay, if I have a problem and I would like to find a solution, check the solution on the 4 values and the principles. Do I stay within that agile concept? Or am I re-implementing old stuff? Because that happens very often. I come to this a little bit later. So this is the agile concept. These are agile methodologies. There are more, by the way. If you, John Kern has FDD here. There are many more, right? These are the original ones when we wrote the manifesto, and there was some more as well. And in the meanwhile, we have things like safe and less. And I like to use a lot of lean and Kanban principles. You know, lean from the Toyota factory, the world's flatter and that kind of thing, but very helpful as well. Now it comes, every methodology has practices. You know what that word means, practice? It's what you do. You don't do a methodology, you do a practice. And depending on where you are and the type of work that you do and the problems that your team bumps into, you look in the different methodologies and you cherry pick the practices that help you most. If you are a real agile practitioner, you are an agnostic. And an agnostic means nothing else than, hey, I don't go dogmatic into one methodology. I just cherry pick what helps me most. And that's what it should be. Agile is about learning and being open to learning, right? So this is what and there's more, right? But this is what you saw in that room at the time. We didn't make that drawing, by the way, but those elements were there. But let me take you back to what we tried to solve. And what we tried to solve is, I think, heavily underestimated or overestimated, depending on how you see it. What I know is that a lot of people, this is the waterfall. You know the waterfall? Okay. And I remember that until 5 or 10 years ago, people would say to me, oh, you know, Arie, but you have some projects that are really for the waterfall, some are really for agile, and some are hybrid. And hybrid means going on a diet and still eating candy. Hybrid doesn't exist. Hybrid is the big BS. Switch off the sound, BS means bullshit, right? You can put the sound back on. So, the point is, and I want to take a couple of minutes to explain to you what is seriously wrong in that waterfall. Why do I do this? Because I see so many people trying to move from where they are today, traditional waterfall kind of working. They try to go into the Agile way of working, and then I look at it and I see all the waterfall principles still in their new Agile way of working. And then I talk with people about it, and then people say, no, that's not true what you say. I think, well, okay, that could be. But I think at least I have something to say about it. And I think a true agilist should always listen, because it could be something interesting to learn, right? And learning is a lifetime activity. So when you look at what happens, this is problem number 1. You know what that is? The client. Yeah. You know what the client is? The client is the one who pays your monthly fee. The client is the one that expects the value. The client is the one, if you do your job well, will say, okay, come back. Do it again. The client is also the one, if you don't do it well, who will not say, come back. Right? So you need to understand that client role. And a client can be an external client, can also be internal. You know, when you're in an IT department, for example, or in a marketing department, or in an HR department, and a business department needs something from you, that's also a client relationship, isn't it? But what do we do very often, and especially going back to when we wrote the manifesto, what happens is, you know, we talk to that client, and then we get into a process where we create a document out of it, and then we get into the translation models. Right, so we have an analysis now. This is the analyst making analysis. And then we have the functional designer making a functional design. And the technical designer making a technical design. And it goes to the developer and so on. And I remember I'm talking 1992, 1993, I was a developer at the time. And I was at a big chemical company, internal client, the pension department, and the manager of the pension department, a lady close to retirement. Toos said to me, it was a Friday morning, 10:30, I was walking in for coffee and catch up. And she had 2 piles of paper on her desk, and she looked like she had a pain. I said, what's going on? And she said, Arie, look at this. I said, yeah, your colleagues made this for me. So that's nice. And she said, it's a functional design. It was Friday morning, 10:30. She said, Monday at 10, I have a meeting and I have to say whether it's right or wrong. And if I say it's right, I'm held hostage because I said it was right. She said, first of all, it's too much to read. I just can't, it's too much. She said, second, I don't understand what's in there. This is where the client talk, and then we get into those documents that the client simply doesn't understand. And then she said something that was of great visionary value. She said, Arie, I can ask my IT department whether it's right or wrong, what's in that functional design. But that IT department doesn't really know what my people do. There you go. I remember I was working for that same consultancy firm. And in the Netherlands, you always have a probationary time when you go into a new permanent contract, 1 or 2 months. So I was at the end of my 2 months, and my field manager came to me. And he said, hey, Arie, well, we get a permanent contract, really great. Now you need to choose a specialism. And I was doing KICS, COBOL, job control language, DB1, DL1, DB2. And I thought that was quite a specialism, more than 40 hours a week. And he said, no. I mean, you have to become a specialist in banking, insurance, government, logistics. So I said to him, so you asked me to be the expert in somebody else's job while I have 40 hours a week doing my own job. That's also BS, right? It's more simple to take someone from the pension department and to take someone, in this case, from the IT department and put them together at the table. And in the late 80s, I was doing work like this with the people from the internal client department and myself sitting together at the keyboard and trying to improve the code. So the point is that you have here a couple of things that are really not going well. First of all, you have the language. So the client lose connection with what's in there. So language creates a problem, right? You get the moment where people misunderstand each other. You said this and they thought it was something else. Also, what we do is we freeze. So this is what the client said, and the only thing we do is translation. And if you want to change what's in there, it's going to a massive change. You know what? Request for change, you know that one? And if you want to, it's like a horror movie, then we have the change advisory board. Right? The change advisory board meets every month to decide on the changes. We deliver every 2 weeks. What are we talking about? It's nonsense, right? Nonsense. And who knows? And it should never be about the requirements. It should be about, does it bring the value? I don't care about requirements. I care about the value. So that freeze is not helping us. What you also have in that same thing going on is, I like to call them the toll gates. And toll gates are just like when you pay a toll, right, at the highway, you wait because you have 7 cars in front of you. It takes time. And it doesn't add value, it just takes time, nothing else. You have also another problem that this client, because Toos is also a human being, says, okay, when is it ready? And you only did the first analysis, you have no clue. But still you say, oh, I think it will be ready April 1. And there you go. Because now Toos will say, no, you said April 1. It's even in the contract. Right? And what happens is that we always do the same task at the end, testing. And then when we go down that line, the time here is fixed, and everything takes a little bit more. And I've been literally in situations where we had 3 months of testing planned in the overall project plan, and then we ended up with 1 month because we were late all the time. So we are late because it's more complicated, right? So it's more and more bulky, and the solution to be on time is to test less. There you go. Now, and the point is that you get into, with those estimates, you get into the bugs. Really problem, right? And we have the inefficiencies about the toll gates, very inefficient. And what comes out of it is all simple. It will cost you time. And today we don't have time anymore. Now in the past, we would say to each other, this is the mid-90s, if you do a delivery, a new development, 6 months is the limit. Then you need to be out because the world is changing so fast. 6 months today is way too much. We deliver every 2 weeks for a good reason, because the dynamics are so high. Right, so we don't have time. So if you want to talk about going back to what Agile is really all about, Agile is about 2 words: avoiding delay, nothing else. And if you want to add a little bit, you can say it's about avoiding delay of delivering solutions and products that bring value. Because if we bring a solution to the market, there's no value. At the moment that the solution is in the market, it starts to generate the value. Right? We always expect that we look back and oh, their value goes up. No, it doesn't work like that. Right? You need to do with something winning. Now, what's really helpful is to understand that the things you do in here are things, at least in the brain, that you need to have your analytical view, you need to understand design, you need to understand architecture. But if you do that in this process, you lose so much time we don't have anymore today. So where you have normally that process where you do your analysis, function design, technical design, development, testing, user acceptance, whatever you do. Now you take the same timeline and you flip this line here. So you have all this expertise together, right? All the expertise you have together. And here it goes. Every 2 to 3 days, sitting at the table. Here it goes, very complicated. Talking to each other. Agile is an interaction concept. You save time. I mean, if I ask every one of you now what I said so far, I get as many different stories as there are people. Because you have your own education, your own background privately, your own background on the job, you have your own ears to listen, right? So you build your own story. And maybe, well, I can tell you 100% for sure, that story is not what I intended to say 100%. Now that's not a problem because you go home, you can talk about it with friends, family, or you have a drink, whatever. But the moment that you're building something for the client, it needs to be aligned with what the client is expecting. And the point that I want to make is in this process here, this one, you have interpretations and assumptions. And interpretations and assumptions are wrong. That's what we know. Now, if I do remote and written communication, if I do this kind of thing, the remote communication, I have something, I write it down on paper, I send it to you. I have to wait for you until you have time, then you start reading, but you read with your interpretations and assumptions. And I already had my interpretations and assumptions talking to the client. So we have error number 1, and you put on top of this error number 2, and then you do it to the next one. Error number 3, number 5, number 6. That it takes time. And you can't fix those interpretations and assumptions. You know how you can fix interpretations and assumptions? By sitting at the table and asking, is this what you mean? Making a drawing maybe on a flip chart, is this what you mean? Try to explain to someone how a screen on a computer should look if you design, just talking. Or make a drawing, sitting side by side, oh, this is what I mean. Can you see how impactful face-to-face communication. So Agile is moving away from remote and written communication to face-to-face communication. Now, if I say this, note that if you are ever working Agile and people start sending documents to you, that's not how it's supposed to be. And then you say, no, we have an improvement here. We need to do something about it. Now, the question is, who do we need? Because I can ask the whole world, to sit down and talk to me. That's also not the idea. How does it work? First of all, the concept, right? If you have week 1 and week 2, you identify here what you want to work on. And the idea is when I get to the end of that 2 week that we call a sprint or a time box, it has to be either in production or ready for production. That's Agile work. So you have to identify yourself. If I am developing something, and I don't care what you develop, you can maybe develop a software solution, You can develop a recruitment campaign for an HR department. You can organize a conference for the marketing department. It's all development. Business, who need it, development, who does it, right? They can happen. And the idea is, at the end of the tools, what I worked on is done. Ready, go. Okay, that's the idea. So we start generate value, return on investment, ASAP. Okay, now the question is, who can stop me? So before I go into sprints, what I always do is talk to my client, the boss, the one who asks me, hey, can you do this for me with the team? I sit down with the client and I will identify together with the client, if we make something, who can stop us? Now, question to you. If you make something, let's make the typical agile example. We're going to make a piece of software, right? We want to put it in production after 2 weeks. Who can stop us? In other words, who can accept or reject us? The client. Okay, so that's number one, right? We can say, so the business people can stop us. Who else?
Your team.
Sorry?
Your team.
Your own team? Can you elaborate a little bit more?
Because when your team don't working, you close the project.
Yeah, of course, right? You need your team with me. What I meant was in acceptance, right? Is it good enough? You have your team on your internal check as well. Next, because there are more, right? And that's the point. We often forget. Sorry?
Time.
Yeah, time.
When you say that you cannot fit you in a deadline which you have, you are late, you are feeling that you are already late, and you cannot finish your job, your task until the time which you mentioned. Or maybe before. Time management. Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
So how to handle that one? Can I come back to that a little bit later? Yeah, all the questions. I think this is about roles and responsibilities. So I want to finish this part first. Right?
There's something here. It says force majeure or health issues.
Yeah. So okay, that is of course we can. I once had a team, 2 guys in a car, and they get in a car accident. Yeah. What do? I mean, but who can officially stop us as a team? Who can officially stop us?
Maybe management?
Management, yeah. What do you think? What do you think, for example, about the legal department? I did a lot of work for the government, and he said, whatever you make, if you make an app on a website, whatever you make, if we didn't approve, you're not going live. Every single word, every single text block on that app, on that website, has to be checked by the legal department. So the legal department is not an internal client; they're not going to use it, but they have the authority to stop you. And I had the same thing with operations, and I had the same thing with for example, architecture departments and marketing communication department. Let me explain a little bit how I see this. So if I like to use colors. I'm struggling with my markers. So we have the client. Red is the business, okay? So I have my client here, and the client is sponsor. The client has a problem, and the client has the money for the team to create the solution. And the client is also the one who understands the big value of that new solution for the organization. But for the nitty-gritty details, what the solution should do, you need people who actually use that one here. People, really from the business. I call them business ambassadors. And then I have a half one here, and I come back to this. We have, of course, we know this. We have people who do things like development and test and the analytical. It's not an individual that does test. It's a role that you take. So today you can be a tester, tomorrow you're a developer. Today I'm a developer, and tomorrow I am an analyst. So it's a role that you can take. One person can take multiple roles, right? Multidisciplinary. And now here it comes. Here we have the non-functional standards, because those are sort of standards that are the same for every team. But we need to comply to those standards. Otherwise, they will not approve the work that we have done. And the point is, if I have this last session here, and then, those people here, or even the business, It's the first time that they see it. What do you think that happens if people see something for the first time? They are confronted with our interpretations and assumptions. They have no ownership. It's something that you made for them. So they look at it and say, huh? Is that for me? No. That's not what I said when I was on top here, right? As a client, you were talking, that's not what I said. So you get this whole list of things to fix at the end of your sprint. You know what that means? Rework. You know what rework means? Time. It means delay, right? Misunderstandings means rework. Bugs means rework. Inefficiencies means losing time anyway, right? So you need to understand that this is a problem that we have together, right? That we have to solve. So what we do is, I love it when people go on their knees for me. Yeah, really awesome. So, thank you for this. So this is for me the typical solution development team. Right, here we go. So you might have in here 9 people or less. If I have a large development that I need, my largest team was 94 people. But I know that I need a team that's not too big. So the whole list of things to do, the requirements list, I chop into pieces, and I have a number of those teams working in parallel on that same list of requirements, the product backlog. I need to keep them aligned, but it works. And then also, I need something, to keep that together, like sort of the glue. So we have here we have a delivery lead, and here I like to say we have the Scrum Master. And if you want to see, where the heart of Agile, where the core of Agile working is, it means that you have, we know this, right? In every development team, every day we kick off with the daily. The day start, the daily stand-up, the daily scrum, the daily achievement meeting, whatever you call it, the daily. The daily where somebody says, I'll take this task from the board because that's the one my team needs most. This is where we are self-organizing. Nobody will tell you what to do. You know what to do, and you do it, right? And that saves time. Nobody's managing you because you're an adult with a bachelor or a master, 2 master degrees. So we don't have to tell you what to do. And on the business side, red again, this is where I like to say, and those people, they need to make sure that on the content side, what I make, that is at the end of the sprint, accepted and ready for production. Don't you ever make the mistake to make that last meeting an acceptance meeting. It's not true. These people are working in a shared responsibility, no matter where you are from, legal department, you are a developer, you are from the business, I don't care. You work in a shared responsibility. And if you are not developing, your task is to provide feedback, highly frequent feedback, so that by the end of the sprint, we have had all the feedback and we have adapted what we made and we meet all the criteria. So that also means if you go into the work, you cannot do this. Impossible. Because I will for sure get a rejection here. So what I do is I show what I've made, get the feedback, take it in. I show what I made, get the feedback, show what I made, get the feedback, show what I made, get the feedback. Every 2 to 3 days. And that will help you based on the feedback to converge to the best valuable solution that you have in that sprint. That's what we look at. It's not complicated. It's absolutely not complicated. But the big problem is here is that if you work like this, it's different. And there's a couple of things that are seriously different from Waterfall traditional working. So first of all, those roles are different from the job profile that people had in the Waterfall. So first of all, people need to accept, okay, I'm now a multidisciplinary professional. So today I will develop and tomorrow I will do test and that because I do what the team needs, number one. But secondly, what you also have in this situation is that the collaboration and the shared responsibility is something that people didn't have. People literally ask me, Arie, are you telling me that I am now responsible for a say, yeah? And it's like, I don't do that. I said, well, so you have to put that in place. People just don't take responsibility because you say so. You have to create a safe ecosystem where people feel, and I tell them, you know, you have the business expertise or you have the legal expertise. Nobody else has more expertise than you do. And because I create from my position very often, you know, I was here and I say, okay, I create a situation with your boss, whoever that is running the department, that you have the authority to accept or reject what the team is making. Or that you have the authority to bring in the requirements and to change them, to accept and reject what has been made because you have the best business knowledge. You know, my client, I love to talk about Simon. I always said to him, Simon, you don't know what you need under the fingertips to get to the value, but your people do. So I need your people, not you. I just need you to empower your people. And empowerment is easily said, and Simon is a great guy. He knows, and he did. But there are a lot of people and a lot of cultures where empowering people is not so easy. Right? People don't want to be empowered. People don't feel empowered. People don't want to give empowerment to other people. Right? So there's a whole thing going on. But this is really important. And what you see very often is that people still need to find approval and that we still keep some sort of secret. Oh yeah, we do a sprint for development, and then we do a sprint for test, and then we do a sprint for UAT. User acceptance testing, and that means basically that you're doing a waterfall, nothing else. And that's the conceptual thinking. Am I out of time? 5 minutes? Okay, good. Now, there's a couple of things that you need to understand. And the first one I want to give to you, yourself. I can tell you, all of you, you don't like change. You don't like change either, Thomas. I'm sorry. We don't like change. Even I don't like change. Well, because it makes you, this is that little amygdala. You know, then I get, okay, I buy a new phone. So in the beginning, in the old days, you had to bring in all the information into your phone again. Took hours of work. Now I have an iPhone, so now I can put just my iPhone next to the new iPhone, and I can sit down and I can wait till something happens. And in the beginning, it was like, is it really working? Is it really? Yeah. The point is, there's this subconscious that's lurking in the dark, right? So we need to understand that we really have to change. And I saw a phrase, they say it's from Winston Churchill. And he supposedly said, perfection is not a state. Perfection is an ambition. And to reach your ambition, you need to change a lot. So perfect people change a lot. And I was looking at it, it was in a conference center. And I thought, if I replace perfect by agile. So agile is not a state. Agile is an ambition. And to reach my ambition, I need to change a lot. So agile people change a lot. And that's a paradigm shift. That's a mindset shift. Oh, I am changing all the time. And the old ways of working are very often written down in process descriptions, process manuals, quality manuals. They're written down. That's a state. Agile is much more liquid. The team can decide, if you go to this one here, the team can decide, okay, where do we take practice from? And if they work for a sprint and they do a retrospective and they think, oh, yeah, we have a problem. Oh, then they can decide how to solve that themselves, as long as the connections to the other teams are covered, right? If there are any. And so you have that kind of thinking is different. So knowing that change is not that bad. And the one story that I like about the Agile way of thinking is in the Second World War, there were the fighter squadrons in the UK flying around, and the Germans would then come in and they had to keep them away and shoot them down or whatever. And the official process, and the pilots who trained like this, is when you get out of your plane, you take your parachute with you, you go to your barrack, you put your parachute with the other stuff that you have, and the moment that the alarm bell goes up, you go to your barrack, you get the parachute, jump in the plane, blah, blah. There was one squadron that statistically had less casualties and more hits on the enemy, not from, but on the enemy. So the commander of the air, I don't know how you call the guy at the time, asked this squadron in the mess while having a drink, guys, you are doing something different. What are you doing different? And everybody was like, because they know they broke the rules. And you know what those people did? They left the parachute in the plane. So the moment that the alarm bell went off, the only thing they had to do was run to the plane. They don't have to go to the parachute. They're in the air earlier, right? So they had less damage on the ground, or early in the sky, blah, blah. And the guy, the commander of the Air Force said, you know, what you do is from now on, everybody will leave the parachute in the plane. The rest of the Air Force is obviously following the official process. So getting improvements, you know, requires out-of-the-box thinking and sometimes breaking rules. And if you come to that one, breaking rules, I want to give you a success factor in agile working. I think what you need to do, you know, to have that solution where you overcome all those problems in delay by having short sessions, 2 to 3 days, that you get together and that you give feedback to what has been made, the feedback is taken in. That requires a lot here on this side. You know, it requires change in collaboration, it requires a change in being present in those sessions, it requires change in being empowered, it's required, you know, change in the way we document, it requires change in how we handle the changes. Like all these changes, this is not something that a developer or someone just from the business can decide on. That kind of change of working has to be approved by the organization, someone higher up, you know, middle management. So one of the most important factors in creating that ecosystem in an organization to be able to work agile is the leadership team. And you have two ways of creating an ecosystem. One, you can say, hey, I want to do a project and I just want to do it in an agile way. I'm working in a non-agile environment. So you create that ecosystem just for one project. And the moment the project's gone, ecosystem is gone because the people will disassembled. Or if you do an agile transformation, you go into permanent change of the ecosystem. But in both situations, you need the leadership team. And the leadership team is always really important on 3 aspects. Number one, people don't like change. We don't like change. So it helps in these kind of situations if someone who has an authority in the organization is role modeling the change. So leadership teams that start working agile themselves are encouraging just by their behavior other people to start working agile as well, right? So that's number one, role modeling. The second one is to bring that change that I was just talking about. So the leadership team needs to facilitate official change in the organization. And also the leadership team needs to understand that bringing a change and making that change successful takes time. If something goes wrong, don't step back into old habits, you know, innovating backward. But accept, okay, we're trying to do something new. It's not perfect yet. So how can we fix this? We have agile coaches. There are people around the globe who can help you out, right? So take advantage of that. And then in terms of agile working, especially if you look at this one. Now this body of knowledge is so big and there's still development. And I also know that if you do software development and you go to agile delivery, you want to go to delivery every 2 weeks, you need to rely heavily on your tooling. And tooling is very complicated. I see, you know, visuals on screen, on conferences where you can easily see 100 different tools that people have to use. I don't like that at all, but it's a fact, right? So I started working on the different tools for myself. Okay, how can we support that agile way of working? And you have 3 aspects in the agile way of working. The communication, especially in the geographical distribution where we are. We're working from home very often, right across the globe. You're maybe in a different country. Okay, you need to have a good platform to do the interaction, your collaboration. You need to have that. Store your information somewhere that you can look back together. You need to have not just video calls, but you need a place where you can have that collaboration going, number one. Second one is that workload, where you have that work going from one team, you know, and then it has to be processed during the sprint. You want to have that visualized, so you need to have tools for that. And we have the technical tool, you know, for the integration and the testing and the deployment. You need to make that happen, right? So you have to keep on improving. It's not that you're done. You cannot say, okay, now we're agile, now we're done. It's keeping on, it's that ambition that I was talking about. It's keeping up the learning. I very often use a hashtag on LinkedIn or Twitter or something and say, learning is a lifetime activity. You never stop. And especially in the world where we live in, there's always something new. So I always recommend if you guys go to a meetup, if you guys go to a conference, and maybe you deliver the talk, after your talk, go to other sessions and listen. And select the sessions where you think, ooh, this is a difficult one. I don't understand this one. Great, go there. Try to get it, right? And try to get your learning. In general, in agile working, what you see is that you take out a lot of delays by changing the way we collaborate. There's much more to say about it than this, but the heart, the core of Agile is that empowered collaboration that we have. I always say Agile is show up or shut up. You can't disappear out of those little workshops like the daily and the heartbeat and the red. You have to be there, because this is when you converge as a team, and instantly when you walk out of a room, digital or physical, you start diverging again, and those little workshops bring you together. This is where you cut out the delay. If you skip those workshops, then you will not get the benefits that we're looking for. Right. So in terms of making that all change, I'll try to leave behind that changing is not always easy. Changing might make you feel uncomfortable, and just start doing it. Don't do it alone, do it with a friend, with a teammate, and make that happen. And then you get somewhere. And I said it yesterday as well, the statement from Mr. Confianant is for me always brilliant. Yeah, I always stick it to my mind, because you cannot change someone else. You can make it comfortable for people to start change. You can create a safe ecosystem where they are willing to experiment. But that means that you have started it yourself. So change always starts with one person. That's what he said. And that's what I want to wish to you. Right? Get it done. Thank you.
Yes, we will be able to take some questions before we give the microphone to Anna Zakoyan about a session about Scrum, but while we are changing the channels, okay, we can take some questions from the room.
Any questions? Can we get the microphone?
I would like to know which platform do you use as like the best ones to, you mentioned communication, visualization, and what are your favorite ones?
Yeah, so the one that, so I have three types of tools, if I may.